Hi, I'm Brandy. This is Hound Dog Hollow, and today I'm going to be going over Honoring the Ancestors, a Basic Guide by Galina Kraskova. This book, so the first book is the one I would highly recommend, Ancestral Medicine. I would start there. I would definitely read this book. This book reads more like a very, very knowledgeable friend having a conversation with you, having a deep conversation with you and guiding you through their practice than it does like Dr. Four's book about, and I'm not comparing them because, you know, I don't like to do that. But what I'm saying is they both have really good information, and honestly, they cover a lot of the same information. This is just more raw. I will say that there are some bad words, which I'm totally down for because y'all know I curse like a sailor. But also some of the writing has like some minor errors. Not often, but enough that I noticed. And also a lot of it is reiterated. A lot of it is redundant. So let me just start going through. But the passion and the energy and the no bullshit way that this book covers it is very, very refreshing. And I literally read this whole book like cover to cover, and I couldn't put it down. It was so inspiring. I took so many notes. It was really, really good. So there's this beautiful poetry. This is more another prayer. Then there's the introduction. This person is very, very passionate about this. This is a class that they have taught on ancestral veneration, and it was a class of 8 lessons. So the book is broken into 8 chapters covering each of those lessons. And so I feel like that's why it's kind of redundant, because when you're in a class, you would go back to the information that you covered the week before and you would talk about it again. So I feel like in that context, it makes a little bit more sense. It's also about, this person is very, very heavily polytheist, which is, I mean, I would say that most of us in this practice are. I still venerate and worship the gods that I was brought up with, so Jesus and Virgin Mary, but even that context has grown and expanded for me. And I think that as far as humanity goes, with our long history and our long lineage, most of your ancestors are going to be polytheist, because monotheism only existed for like the last maybe 2 millennia. So not even really that, like 1500 years maybe. That's really the big, maybe longer. It depends on where your people were. So like the Taino Indians and the people, those ancestors, literally the last 500 years, they became monotheists, and forcefully, not by choice, forcefully. And that's one of the things that is heavily covered in this book that I really, really love. And it's talking about how at one point all human beings were polytheists, and then we were forcefully taught to be monotheists, and that's what the dominant culture has been to date. But it's not, as if you go back and work with your ancestors, from those of you who remember back to the first animal that crawled out of the ocean, then you would know that for the vast majority of human existence we were polytheists, and we worship things like the sun and nature and the moon and so on and so forth. And so that's really a nice view, and this person is really passionate about it, so it's very interesting. I would say that while they definitely have strong opinions about monotheism, that they respect the fact that if your ancestors were monotheists, then it's totally appropriate to connect with those ancestors through that lens, because of course those ancestors would connect more deeply to the Virgin Mary or Jesus or Allah or whatever it is that your family connected with, because that is what they did in life. So they're not saying like completely shut them out because of that, obviously not. And it's totally appropriate to connect with them in that way. However, the vast majority of your lineage over millennia is polytheist. And so she covers that a lot. Well, this is one of my favorite quotes in the whole book. So it starts with basically how we, so the souls of the dead The souls of the dead are the protection of the living. That's a Lithuanian proverb. We stand on the bones of our dead, Lucchini proverb. We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, Yoruba proverb. And crown your ancestors. All of the quotes are really beautiful. I love them. But this one is really heavy. And the reason I got this book is because I saw Elena and the Witches booktube, and I love her. You guys know I love her. But she also really read this. It's a really powerful book. So ancestor veneration was one of the first things that early Christianity worked hard to eradicate, with varying degrees of success at first. I have my theories about why, and most of them come down to this. If you know who you are and where you come from, if you are truly rooted in your ancestral lineage and power, if you know that every time you bow your head or speak your prayers, your entire ancestral line does so with you, you cannot be spiritually corrupted. And that literally gave me goosebumps. Like, I was sitting there in the lunchroom, just like so tingling all over my body. And it was really amazing. And that's how I felt about this book. And it talks about the different ancestrals that we have. I love C.S. Lewis, Till We Have Faces is an excellent book. It's a retelling of the Cupid and Psyche myth. But C.S. Lewis is obviously a Christian author. But it ends up being like an allegory for the relationship with God, and how Cupid has this relationship with Psyche, or Psyche has this relationship with Cupid. And, you know, she's a human. She was immortal, and he was a god. It's not in that context. The story is told from the context of her beloved sister, who's an outsider on this relationship and cannot understand her relationship with divinity. And it's just really, really moving. It's a really good book. So basically the chapters are loosely about basic exercises. And she starts really briefly with, with grounding, centering, and what does she call the first step? So breathing, grounding, getting your breath under control, clearing your mind, centering, so like focusing your energy near your navel or wherever naturally your energy focuses in the midpoint of your body, grounding yourself to the earth. And then also she talks heavily about cleansing, because you don't want to be have any negative energies attached to you. So a lot of cleansing talk. Very, very good information here. I love this chapter, and some suggestions for activities. The next one is, I love this one. Walking, I am listening to a deeper way. Suddenly all of my ancestors are behind me. Be still, they say. Watch and listen. You are the result of 1,000 loves. I love that. So then this really talks about how you never walk alone, and why you would do veneration, and how to make a shrine, a simple shrine. Talks about different ways you could do that, and then it just suggests that you do that, and it gives you some tips. Then this is her 10 most commonly asked questions. So like, if I offer tobacco, what do I do with offerings? Like, why do you do this in your practice? What if you are honoring ancestors and you have no connection to their gods or religion? Just 10 commonly asked questions. You guys probably, what is an ancestor? What if you had a bad relationship? What if your ancestors committed atrocities like genocide? Which, guess what? Probably all of us have ancestors like that. So how to deal with that. And the activity was visiting a cemetery. It talks about colonization and how it affected us in 2 ways, and how we have. So we talked about healing your specific individual line in the other book, and she does talk about that briefly here. But also, she heavily covers the collective work that we have to do, which is at some point our ancestors, half of them forced the other half to destroy their culture and religion. So whether it's like when Christianity took over pre-Christian Europe, or when the colonizers took over everything else, that is one major wound that we have to acknowledge. And then the second one is that when that wound was done to us, we went around and we perpetuated it to others. And so that's the other collective wound. And then we talk about a ritual to elevate the dead, like we've talked about in the prior book. And this one's about feeding your ancestors, different ways to feed them and to connect with them, and also to be careful of taboos. And then basically it just goes into other concepts that we kind of talked about briefly, like what to do if you didn't have a good relationship, what to do if you don't have a good relationship now, how to help those that are wounded or damaged. It's a lot like the other book, but a lot more passionate about our collective debt to to fixing these ancestral curses, which I found very moving and very powerful. So I highly recommend this book to you, but not as a 101. I would do it like as your second or third book. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Love you guys so much. Have a wonderful day.